Good afternoon. Uh, Welcome to this final session. I hope it's been a wonderful summit, first day of the summit for all of us. My name is Stephen Mwangi, co-founder and COO of VirtualPay. And at VirtualPay, we are a payment service provider, assisting businesses in connecting them to our payment gateway for acceptance of a variety of payment methods across Africa. So I'm joined here to discuss the payment infrastructure in Africa with a distinguished panel of gentlemen who I'll also request to introduce themselves. We can start with you here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mustafa. I'm the co-founder and CTO of MoneyHash. We're building a super API to connect the different APIs in fintech and payments and all of the different APIs that a typical company needs to launch their journey. Thank you for having me.
My name is Mohamed Hossam. I'm the co-founder and the chief technology officer of Kashier Payment Solutions. We're a payment acceptance companies. We enable merchants to accept all forms of electronic payments, both in-store and online.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Hisham Al-Falih. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Lean Technologies. We're a payment aggregator and open banking enabler for the MENA region, and we're active in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Egypt.
Hey everyone, I'm Kiaan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Stitch. We are a data and payments API that enables African fintechs to connect their apps to financial accounts and build and scale fintech businesses in Africa. We're live in South Africa and Nigeria currently.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think we all desire an Africa that is more economically integrated. And for that, we do need to have the proper payment trails that will ensure that we have seamless flow of payments. And these gentlemen here are, in one way or another, building the APIs and payment gateways that will aid us to do that. But then, being that they're building in Africa, this comes with a lot of challenges, but maybe opportunities for some of us. And I think the key challenge that we have in Africa, and it has been weighed in a lot during the first day of the summit, is financial inclusion. So we do have quite a bit of an underbanked population, but then again, as I've said, it poses an opportunity for us. So maybe I'll ask the panel, each one of them, starting with Kiaan there, how financial inclusion poses a huge opportunity for you, and what challenges you're trying to solve at Stitch Money through this, and what excites you that you're building in Africa?
Yeah, sure. I think for us, especially starting in South Africa, where we're actually very banked, right? South Africa is over 80% banked, which is very different compared to other African markets. You see reasonably good financial inclusion in that tick people have a bank account, but typically see horrendous financial wellness. Almost nobody uses their bank accounts as a common scene on payday is that there are lines that span 6-8 hours long of people just trying to withdraw their entire pay slip the second they get money into their account. I think for us, trying to create technologies that not only include people as a checkbox, as a boolean to whether people have an account or not, but are actually getting some degree of wellness and are actually benefiting and can engage with financial technology and systems, that really excites us. Even in markets where financial inclusion is solved, like South Africa, I think there's so much more that we can go further to look at inclusion but wellness as well. So for us, it's really exciting to be able to support products that enable people to interface with financial technologies at that level.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay. Well, obviously, financial inclusion is a really interesting topic these days, and it's obviously the main topic with regards to financial technology, right? Bringing people out of being unbanked or underbanked. I think one interesting analogy here is to think about how many third world countries essentially leapfrogged the laptop, directly into the smartphone. And I think there's a very strong analogy into how mobile wallets are that leapfrog away from, you know, traditional bank accounts into just, you know, a means of people managing their finances. What does that mean for players like ourselves? The reality is we are essentially agnostic to whether or not someone has a bank account, a mobile wallet, an investment account, or any type of financial instrument. We want to enable them to have better access and better interconnectivity between their entire financial life and ultimately have you know, the ability to make informed financial decisions. So as Kiaan was mentioning, it's not really just about providing a bank account, it's about providing financial services that consumers and businesses can use to better their lives and better their spending habits. And that's kind of the goal of us intermediating between this quite fragmented financial ecosystem in a very rapidly evolving environment.
Fantastic. Mohamed?
Yeah, so building on what my colleagues were saying here, the leapfrog definitely helped us a lot with you know, with skipping some of the payment instruments that were, you know, adopted by other countries that were ahead of us. And from the acceptance side, the flip side of that coin, we're capturing that opportunity to enable merchants to accept any form of payment, whether it is a traditional form of payment that they've seen before, like cards, or something that is, you know, really picking up now. It's BNPL, buy now, pay later solutions, and yeah, that is definitely something we're also enabling merchants to accept as a form of payment as well, with partnering with other players in the ecosystem. So yeah, I think the leapfrog was definitely helpful, and for us, being on the acceptance side, we're enabling merchants to accept the modern new ways that fit today's problems that we're facing. Yeah.
Yeah, and building on what everyone else said, that actually imposes a problem from the merchant side of things, like, because the merchants now have to kind of integrate a lot of different solutions and a lot of different you know, integrations to kind of be able to actually you know, acquire the customer. So you know, the presence of solutions and infrastructure solutions such as all of the different companies on this panel is essential to, you know, to keep the wheel going, because you know, the opportunities are there, the alternative payment methods are done, and there's people have chosen different payment methods and different methods to kind of like do their daily transactions. But this imposes a lot of different you know, integration challenges on the merchant, and that's what we you know, all of the different companies are trying to solve.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Another challenge has been in the fact that we have quite a number of local currencies. So we have 50-odd currencies in the continent. And as we build the next payment rails, what sort of challenges have you faced in the infrastructure that you're building, your APIs and payment gateway, when it comes to the volatility and the illiquidity of some of these currencies, and also the fact that another challenge is the different languages. So in your experience, probably I'll pose this to Mohamed and Mustafa, as you support your merchants, what sort of challenge has that posed? The different currencies, the different languages?
Yeah, so for us, multi-currency is an area where we're very much focused. For example, a lot of our merchants are in the hospitality industry, and they have the need to be able to accept different currencies. For us, that really goes towards the issuer side, because the issuer handles all the FX, but that translates to a higher end payment amount to the cardholder themselves. So I think having a more fluent way to do currency exchange and currency translation that does not really impose such high fees on the cardholder would definitely enable much richer experiences. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and in our case, it's like he said, that there's basically you know, a lot of different challenges in our case, because what we're building at MoneyHash is we're building basically a unified checkout that is being accessed from different markets, and the promise is that this checkout is actually accessed, you know, at the same experience. So what you want to do is promise these different merchants and different platforms that are using our network to be able to actually you know, just show that user what they expect, which is the currency that they use and, in the language that they use. And that poses a lot of different challenges also on the back end, because so that user paid in a certain currency in a different language, but now how do you show that in the back end to the merchant at the end of the day? So what we did is basically kind of exposed a lot of different currency APIs that they can use, and they get to basically kind of customize that to what they want, and then eventually it became really helpful to them.
Fantastic. Maybe something Mohamed has also mentioned is the fact that cost is an issue. So some of these cross-border solutions that I'm sure Hisham is building in the MENA region have a cost element to it. And the consumers and the merchants in this modern day and age need instant payment solutions. So how have you factored in cost as you build your infrastructure, but not compromising on the fact that instant payments are required?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it touches upon two main pain points that we're seeing with merchants. The first is you have merchants with incredibly comfortable margins, but that expect instant settlement, particularly across borders. And then you have the exact inverse, merchants that expect essentially that have little to no margins, and are maybe a little bit more comfortable with T+1 or T+2 settlement. How do we provide a product that is able to essentially cater to a variety of merchants with a variety of needs while also maintaining a minimum threshold of usability, reliability, scalability, and security? That is a continuous question that we ask ourselves every day. The reality is right now we're somewhat constrained by the existence and operation of the central bank rails that exist in various countries. And what we're seeing today with the Pan-African rails and payment settlement system is I think one such initiative that I would love to see kind of happen across the world and across various other countries within the region, because that ultimately will stimulate a much more cohesive user experience that leads to instant settlement. Now, we get to the point of cost. Unfortunately, for the last number of decades, we have been somewhat I'd say constrained by the overdependence on credit card and debit card schemes and the exuberant fees that those have led to with regards to what merchants are paying. In some cases you're paying upwards of 250 basis points for every transaction, which can be prohibitively expensive on many merchants in many use cases. So what we're aiming to provide is essentially a variable or an alternative to the credit card and debit card payment mechanisms, which is essentially a direct bank-to-bank transfer that is facilitated using a secure API that can be integrated within the merchant's application. That is currently available today in a number of markets with Lean, and hopefully as this becomes more mainstream with the advent of open banking, we'll see that become better accepted and more widely adopted. In fact, you're seeing that today manifest itself in players like Visa and MasterCard essentially go out and go on a shopping spree. Essentially, Visa initially trying to buy Plaid for 5.3 billion, which went through, then shifting its focus to Tink. You also saw MasterCard, snatch up a couple of similar providers across the world. I think what that indicates is there is a significant headwind against the traditional credit card and debit card, mechanisms and payment schemes that is being disrupted. And hopefully, my colleagues on this panel and others like them around the world will continue to fight the good fight of basically reaching a world that, as you said, has as close as possible to instant settlement while also minimizing the fees associated with them.
Absolutely fantastic. So we keep up the fight. And over to Kiaan. As you build and try to offer interconnected financial accounts at Stitch, I'm sure you've encountered a lot of resistance, if I may call it that, from the fact that there's a lot of limited availability of public APIs from a bank side, from a telco side, and other financial institutions. Some of them are not willing to play game. How big of a problem has this posed you in the fact that there's a risk of interoperability?
He should plead the fifth here.
yeah, this is being recorded. No, great question. I actually think for the most part we've been pretty impressed with how willing these institutions have been to move forward with these types of regimes, right? Like, I think at this point, everybody does understand to some extent that open banking, open finance will be a thing. I think the time horizons are very challenging on that, right? So I think previously I used to, in 7, 8 years ago, past fintech I was at, I used to be fairly antagonistic with banks and kind of think they never want to do anything or move things forward. I don't really think that anymore. It just can be difficult, right? They're like large organizations, and enacting this change is really, really hard. And I think we often position ourselves, and in our engagements with banks, we kind of try to be the smooth on-ramp onto these things, right? So where possible, can we co-create solutions with you? Where possible, can we build solutions, where you are unable to at this moment in time, and like we can work out what that transition path looks like over time, right? Where possible, let's just work directly and you have access to these APIs. But I think, like realistically, we probably find only 5 to 10% of banks or telcos that we work with have things you can consume, and like of those, maybe 50% have production-ready APIs at this point. It will happen, but there is demand and consumer-facing demand, fintech-facing demand today. Like, how are we as Stitch able to serve that, but while still maintaining that these are bank relationships, these are bank customers, and what is the bridge to all of that? So often it's a bit of a balancing act between what can we do now as Stitch, but actually try to be like an on-ramp or a facilitator to these bank partnerships and these bank relationships over time.
Fantastic. Still sticking with the open API mantra, I'll probably rope in Mustafa and Mohamed. The perception of such banks and telcos and other financial institutions as to why they're not exposing their APIs to the public or to whoever wants to consume them is the threat, the imminent threat or perception of threat that their data might be compromised by whoever will connect to that data. So is this simply a trust issue from these telcos or whatever, or banks, or is there an actual imminent security threat of data?
No, so there's definitely an imminent threat. That is something we cannot deny, and it's a growing threat each and every year. So cybersecurity is definitely a very important factor to consider. But I think with banks specifically, it's part of it is regulatory, and the other part is basically the cost of change. A lot of these banks, up until a few years ago, were using extremely old legacy core banking systems. Open APIs in order to integrate with that would be a huge high-cost project. Integration projects are always the worst. And like Kiaan was saying, the size of banks and having to go through a change of that magnitude is, it really has to be a strategic decision from the bank to take that approach, and it has to be supported by regulation. And this is what we're seeing now. But in terms of the threat, no, the threat is very real, and banks and fintech players alike are continuing to evolve to face those threats every day. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Like the threat is real. I like when I'm building anything, I like to say for when the hacker comes, like he's coming. It's just you don't know when. So the threat is real, but also you gotta look at the responsibility that these banks are facing. Like to everyone, to the public, they are being looked at as the one place that's safe. So I understand where they're coming from when it comes to being that protective of the data and being that protective of like everything that they have, but still I see some progress. I have to say, I see some progress in the way that we're dealing with different companies and different telcos, and I see that they're trying really hard to kind of upgrade their systems and trying really hard to kind of expose the different APIs that at least keep the market going.
Just to add one point here, one of the things that have been really helpful with, for example, having a national scheme like MISA and a national API like UPG is that you don't really rely on the bank itself for the APIs, but rather on the network. So this has been really helpful for us, for example, to adopt Misa in an online transaction manner. So accepting Misa online for us, we don't have to integrate with the banks directly, but rather with an instance of UPG, which is basically the national API for the national switch. So unifying the APIs makes life a lot easier for players like us when you're doing integration.
Great. I'll pose this to Hisham. There's been a huge development on the macro level in the continent owing to the collaboration of Afrexim Bank and the African Continental Free Trade Area. So they've come up with a PAP system that is aiming to interconnect the region in this one single switch. How big is this?
I mean, it's massive. It's absolutely revolutionary if it can get off the ground, right? There's a certain critical mass and terminal velocity that has to be reached with regards to members of the network and participants that are going to kind of be enablers of the PAP system. I think in essence, it's aiming to solve some really critical problems that we were addressing just earlier about affordability and kind of timeline of payment settlement across geographies. I can give you some real world examples today of Lean Technologies clients that have customers in multiple countries that probably only have one custodian account that want to be able to pool their customers' accounts or customers' funds into their custodian account in order to top up a wallet and perform any transactions. Doing that is an absolute pain for them. It is the difference of life and death potentially in terms of the user experience and their ability to execute on their customers' demands. Some of them are trading platforms that need to be able to execute on a particular trade within a particular timeline in order for that to be a reasonable trade for the customer. What's the point of executing on a trade a day later on Bitcoin? You know what I mean? Like the prices with the movement nowadays, it's 10-15% higher or lower. So I think there's obviously a big pain point here to be solved, and I think the PAP system is aiming to solve that. I hope to see it kind of continue to grow with more participants in the coming years.
Great. And as we close, because I'm told we're short of time, maybe each one of you can address this. What are you currently busy with, and what does the future look for each of your companies as you build the next payment rails in Africa? Starting with you, Kiaan.
Yeah, sure. So we just launched in Nigeria 3 weeks ago. So for us, Nigeria is just a massive market for us to take on. I think there's a massive opportunity, specifically in exactly like what Hisham and the others have been speaking about on a new payment rail, right? Account-to-account payments. There's just like a huge number of fintechs to serve there that have needs for an alternative rail, like real-time clearing has actually largely been solved in Nigeria, right? They have a really sophisticated payment system, but actually costs can be prohibitive in many cases, right? Like with card. And so you see interesting opportunities there to how do you work with fintechs and how do you solve for wallet funding use cases for investments or Bitcoin, like crypto, savings, crypto, person-to-person and remittance, right? I think all of those fundamentally you see some very big challenges with just receiving money and doing it in a way that makes sense on a unit basis. So for us, we're continuing to go deep in South Africa on our payments product, but really excited by sort of the response we've got from fintechs in Nigeria, and we'll be spending a bunch of time there. So we will be in Lagos for the next 3 weeks. So if anyone is there, we'd love to chat to you.
Amazing. All the best.
Special shout out to the software developers in Lagos.
Yes.
Stephen, this has been a really interesting
Hisham.
panel. I'd say one thing that I want to highlight right now is we're in a very interesting time within the fintech ecosystem in Africa across the developing markets. I usually kind of use the example of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right now, we're kind of still at the base, and we're providing access into the rails and providing functionality that enables developers and merchants to be able to build the solutions that they want. In the very near future, that access will be democratized. as we're seeing with PAPS, as we're seeing with a variety of other initiatives that central banks are putting together. Access into the payment rails will no longer be revolutionary enough for a business to kind of not only maintain but also grow. So then we have to look inwards as lean technologies and say, where is the opportunity and how can we be champions of financial technology and enable the next generation of financial innovation? Not just for fintechs, by the way, Kiaan, I disagree with you there because I think fintech is horizontal and every single vertical across the payment scheme will be enabled by one form or another, a player like lean. And so then we think, well, is it ease of use? Is it reliability? Is it functionality? So now we have consumer to merchant payments. Can we enable merchant to consumer and merchant to merchant and B2B to C and B2C to B and all the variables of that acronym, right? So I think there's a lot of really exciting innovation that's happening right now, and it's as much as there was a 0 to 1 that happened in the US and in China and the UK and the EU with open banking and PSD2, I think we are now at a stage, all of us on this stage, to be going for 0 to 1 ourselves within our own markets and to be innovating with the constraints that we have within the regulations that we have within the markets that we're playing within, and truly reinvent what the future of financial innovation would look like. So it's pretty exciting, and I think similar to shout out to Kiaan, there's some smart software engineers and product people that want to join a fast-growing startup. You should talk.
Thank you very much, Hisham. Mohamed?
Yeah, so like the gentlemen were saying, it's really exciting times in fintech. We're really much, very much focused, if we're talking about open APIs, about the IPN regulation that just came out a couple of days ago. IPN is basically the instant payment network for Egypt, and we're very excited about the opportunity for bank-to-bank payments directly. Some industries now we're not really able to tackle properly because it's cost prohibitive to do that using card. Real estate is one of them, for example. So we believe the IPN is going to solve a lot of that for us. And we're excited about adopting new payment methods and about adopting new payment instruments in the future, so that we're very much focused on that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mohamed.
Yeah, I couldn't, I can't agree more. We're really excited about witnessing a time where there is a lot of different things that are changing, and we're there to kind of be working with customers and understanding how they're going to implement this and how they're going to integrate this, because essentially what we're trying to do is to kind of help them with the integrations. So this is going to be very exciting for us. So we're really busy with our customers and understanding how what are the trends of their integrations and what are the trends of them coupling different APIs and coupling different services, and how are they using it and how are they actually navigating all of these regulations across different markets. So this is very exciting for us, and we're also hiring. So if you
everybody's hiring, guys. So
yeah.
All right, fantastic. It's been a pleasure hosting and moderating the panel. I hope it was value to all of us. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.